Hello there, welcome back, and today we are talking about um, language learning as always, but more specifically, listen, and even more specifically about a tool that I've been using recently, and I think that is really, really useful. So, today I have listened a lot. Like, I watched some stuff, some content, talked a bit, right, just a tiny bit. But I listen a lot today. I think that I have listened to around 1 hour and a half throughout my day, maybe more than that. Yeah, probably more than that. But I have listened a lot. And listen is a very powerful tool to improve your language in general, right? Makes the immersion type of thing, etc. And I think that is important to watching content, like seeing someone doing something, but also just just listen content actually. So you are watching a video on the YouTube, for instance, and here, for example, you can see my mouth moving and my expression through my arms, what I'm talking about. Though my videos are not graphic, it just me and the phone right here. There is nothing going on. But in the most majority of YouTube videos, there is a bunch of um, graphic things going on that make you understand better the content of the video. So if I'm talking about medical approach, for example, and there is some image um, showing some medical stuff, and I'm explaining something with um, the image, it will become clearer what I'm talking about. This is something that the video and watching the content can proportionate to you. Uh, but although it's important to listen to content and watching at the same time, sometimes to improve your English, you should um, try to just listen to content. You know, I felt that I was watching a bunch of content. I'm not the guy for of podcasts. I don't like too much to sit and listen to someone talking about their lives and for 2 hours long, or talking about some specific theme in this format. I don't know. I just don't feel that it's a thing for me. I see some podcasts sometimes, some very specific podcasts. Like if I really like the person, I would like to watch the podcast that he or she is on it. But I'm not the podcast type of person, and I don't see myself consume this content a lot. So I was watching a bunch of content. And even when I was listening to content, was about listen to content that was a video. So I put a video there on the YouTube and will just listen to it. So I realized that it is important indeed to have some contact with the listen only, right? It's important to watching. You can understand much better if you use subtitles, for example. But for you get better in the listen only, you should try to consume content that is only listen. You don't see anything, because in the real life, um there will be not like graphic elements to give you a hint what the person is talking about, or probably will be not having, a bunch of auxiliary objects to guide you in the conversation. Normally it's just a person, and he or she is talking with you like this. So it's basically um, someone talking, and you will not have the subtitles to read what the person is talking. So it's important to train your hearing, train your ear to listen only. And I was searching for an app to do that, so I installed the Radio Garden. It's an application to listen to radios, like in all over the world. So if I want to listen to a French radio in France, I could just go there. If I want to listen to Australian radio, I could go there also. And for myself, more specifically, I was aiming for English speaking countries because I'm learning English. So Australia, United States, Canada, and mainly um, UK, because I want to have the pronunciation of the United Kingdom, like the British pronunciation. So I was searching there, and I could find a lot of things. Right? I was going into the radios in London, in um, Birmingham, and those cities on UK, and I was listening to it. I was enjoying it, and it it was great for my listening skills overall. However, I have such big problem with radios because the radios sometimes they talking about some specific type of content, like um, let's say that we are talking about um, some medical. I don't know why I'm giving the medical examples frequently, but let's say that I'm talking about some medical issue that is going on, or I want to talk about it in the radio. I could do that. Actually, the people do that constantly, but they also talk a lot about news. In in some sense, the radio exists to give you the news of your country or of that region. So they are talking about Trump and the problems with it, those type of stuff. They are radios, and they are talking about modern problems. But I have a big problem with it because personally I don't like to consume news. I really don't like, because it isn't a thing that I'm worried with. I do prefer just stay away from the news and from all this type of stuff, because personally this is kind of harmful for me, because I couldn't help with anything, right? I know that there is going on a war on, between Palestine and Israel, and also between Ukraine and Russia, and all those wars that we have seen. I know that is going on, but I can't do anything. My help is meaningless. My voice is meaningless in this topic. My opinion is meaningless in some sense, that personally I prefer to not consume news, and like not to be aware of what's going on in the world with each detail, and oh, this guy did this. I'm not interested into it. And that was a problem, because I was searching for radios, and I was wanting some content of the radios, but also I was consuming news unwittingly. So I was thinking, how can I listen to content, a good type of content, and stay away from the news? So that's how I searched up and I found the BBC app. You know, the BBC makes a really big work throughout the world, more specifically in the UK. So, BBC um, is a very no organization, should I say? So, and I will just founded the app of BBC, and that was awesome. I would search up, and in the app you can find about anything. There is still news, talking about the problems that we are coping with, in the global issues, those type of thing. But also there is a bunch of other things. There is plenty content about science, culture, language, food, business, comedy, everything. So I have this app that has a bunch of content to my listen, and uses the British pronunciation. So was a great word for me, and I started to watch a bunch of content, and I still using BBC app because it's helping me with my English a lot, like to do extensive listen, and also to help with some things in the BBC. There is a lot of um, English learn type of content, content that they teach you English. So that's it. And when I found it, I really, really thought, well, that's awesome. Um, they have fictional stories. They have a whole world to you explore. Maybe my whole story right here saying uh, all the steps that I passed through to find the BBC was a bit meaningless, was full of prolixity, but I think that this clears out how important and why I like BBC application, because it's been useful, really useful for my English, and for me. It's important to do an extensive listen type of thing, because um, you should listen to content that is a bit harder than your current level, So that's what they call comprehensible input. But even if you are not following through the comprehensible input all method, I don't like to say comprehensible input too much, because when I say it, I could be interpreted in a wrong way, because there is a whole community and a whole system based on the comprehensible input theory. But the fact that you should consume content that is a tiny bit harder than you can understand, a bit with a tiny higher level of proficiency that you already have, makes a lot of sense. So if you just consume um, content that is at your level, you could improve some things, but you will probably stay in the same level for some while. If you consume content that is under your level, would be boring. It would be probably boring. I mean, it would be not useful at all, because you are not seeing new words, you are not seeing new patterns, you are not seeing new grammar rule applied. You are just consuming content that you already understand pretty well, and that it's just under your level. So that doesn't help too much to improve, and actually can be harmful to your learn, because if you still consume content that is under your level, your brain is not challenger to keep learning and to keep improving in a more proficient level. So the BBC app helps me a lot with it, because um, there is some very hard content, very specific contents, let's say about space. So there is a very specific vocabulary for space. This, let's say that I'm watching a podcast. I don't know what I should call it. It's not like a podcast actually. Let's say that I'm watching a program of space, and there is a bunch of technical and specific um, vocabulary that they are using. So that's is very could be very powerful and very good for the language learn process, and to improve your language, because you are having contact with this technical and specific part of the language, and there is plenty of content in the BBC for it. So if you never tried to use the BBC app, I would recommend it. Try it and discover what there is there. You could, if you are learning English, um, primarily, like it's English content, and if you are aiming for um British accent, or at least a more or less British accent, you could go there and uh, just dive into these contents that are free, a very great, indeed, a very great contents. Like the technical aspects of the content are very high. They produce very high level content, very educational content. I really like them. So actually, I'm saying that, but I'm realizing how clueless I'm I'm about the BBC. I just heard about them. I don't know what they are, how they how they make money, anything. Maybe it, they are they are from the government. They are a government organization or not. I don't know. So it is that. See you guys in the next video, and bye.